Blue Jay fans can breathe a collective sigh of relief as we saw Ricky Tiedemann make his Grapefruit League debut yesterday for the Toronto Blue Jays, and he looked good. He didn't go too long, 26 pitches, but he looked real good yesterday, so we'll break that down on this episode of Jays Digest, as well as George Springer. Took him a while, but he came alive yesterday with a big home run, and he could be a key part of this Blue Jays team going forward, so we'll have that and much more coming up next. And so I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And we were supposed to see Ricky Tiedemann in the first spring training game this year for the Toronto Blue Jays. We were all circling that on our calendars. We were all waiting to see the top prospect just go to work in the first game. And then he had a setback. And a couple weeks go by, doesn't pitch. And everyone's starting to get a little bit worried. Is it serious? Is it just precautionary from the Toronto Blue Jays? What's going on here? We weren't really sure. We were kind of left in the dark, and I think the Blue Jays wanted it that way. But Ricky Tiedemann finally made his debut yesterday, and he looked good, Nick. 26 pitches, 16 of them were for strikes, couple of strikeouts, made a few mistakes, maybe some rust, maybe some jitters. But he looked good all in all, and he could be a huge key to this Blue Jays team as soon as this season, really.
Yeah, he looked very, very good. And the health is obviously the biggest thing for Ricky Tiedemann. A quick reminder, hit the subscribe button before we get into it. But, Peter, let's just get right into it. I mean, you mentioned it. We were both watching the game. We were very excited for Ricky Tiedemann to hopefully, pitch well. And ultimately, he did pitch well. And the biggest thing that I noticed, at least, was the velocity. He hit 97 miles per hour twice, 96 miles per hour 5 times, and recorded a stroke with a changeup in his first inning against JT Realmuto. And, Peter, he looked very comfortable on the mound. Obviously, he gave up a home run to Nicholas Castellanos in the second inning before getting pulled there. But I'm not too worried about that. What I was looking at was obviously the stuff, how he was looking out there, how his slider was looking, which we'll get into in a second. But Peter, velocity was there. He touched 98 according to the thing. I think it was 97.5. It rounds up, obviously. But I saw 98 on the radar gun on the broadcast. And even the Phillies broadcasters were kind of raving about how good he looks and how hard it must be for left-handed hitters to hit against this guy. This is huge for the Jays, and realistically, he is our future ace of this team, and I don't know if there's health pending, of course. I don't know if there's a doubt about that going forward.
Yeah. I gotta wait. I gotta wait a little bit before making that claim, just because of that health that you're mentioning, and he hasn't totaled that many innings in his professional career, and I know he's still young. He's 21 years old, but we got to wait and see. I mean, what's his career high for innings? Is it
78.
like 80 in a season? 78. So it's not a lot. It's not a lot, and he's dealt with a lot of injuries, some shoulder injuries. He's dealt with hamstring injuries. Like he's been snake bitten by the injury bug, and he's been pretty unlucky. I think for this year, we could really look for him to be a lefty-lefty specialist because of those complications that he's facing when lefties are coming up, and they had a hard time yesterday. I mean, we saw Bryson Stott look like a minor leaguer out there against him. He was just waving at the slider. He struck out JT Realmuto, obviously, and Kyle Schwarber had his difficulties up there as well. Like, he was really good against left-handed pitching, and they didn't have a clue against left-handed hitting. Sorry, they didn't have a clue up there, and I mean, that could be a huge key in itself, just him being able to get outs against lefties. Blue Jays don't have many lefty relievers. They don't have many lefty arms in general. So they have Yusei Kikuchi, they have Genesis Cabrera, and they have Tim Mesa. Apart from that, there's not much, and none of them possess the stuff that Ricky Tiedemann does. So I really think he can be a valuable contributor as soon as this season, but I'm going to have to wait before proclaiming him to be the next ace of the Blue Jays, just because I have to see more. I have to see more, and I have to see it with more frequency.
Yeah, and after the Nate Pearson thing that kind of happened, maybe I should relax a little bit. But, I mean, you make a good point there. Obviously, his innings are very, very low on his career, and the biggest thing going forward will be how they play him this season, whether they try to groom him into a starter. Obviously, he'll start in the minor leagues, or if they maybe need him, depending on how the Jays are doing down the stretch, like you mentioned, in the bullpen. We've seen some teams do that. You've mentioned it a few times. If they need a guy, if they want and they think they're going to win or make a push in the playoffs, and he's the best available option, I think that they do potentially bring him up as a bullpen piece. Or maybe they want to play it super safe and just leave him in the minors. Like, who really knows? I suspect he makes his MLB debut this year. I think that's kind of widely renowned there. And looking at some of this stuff from Eric Cross, Ricky Tiedemann made his spring debut today and was averaging 96. He's a lefty who has deceptive kind of arm slot who averages 96 on his fastball, Peter, or his sinker, I guess, which is still fastball. It's very, very wild to watch. I haven't seen a pitcher like this in a while. I mean, Chris Sale, they were making comps on the broadcast. There is some similarities there with the velocity and somewhat of the arm slot, albeit Sale's was much lower. I don't know. I'm super excited. Obviously, he left one up to Nicholas Castellanos, but his stuff looked great. And like you mentioned, and Thomas Hall said too, his slider is disgusting versus left-handed batters. And if he can continue to refine and dominate against right-handed players and hitters, he'll be a problem. But durability, that is by far the biggest thing with Ricky Tiedemann.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest question going forward. Will be how much can he actually pitch in a full season?
I think he will make its debut this year as well. I wouldn't be shocked if it's out of the bullpen. Look, he's their top prospect, and they want to take their time with him. We saw what happened with Alek Manoah. I mean, he's back to square one now. He's back to square one of development after two very good seasons in the major leagues. So you just never know when a guy is ready. But you got to throw him into the fire at some point. And Ricky Tiedemann looks poised. He looks like he's not overmatched out there, and these were big league hitters that he was getting out. It's not like he's facing the minor league system of the Philadelphia Phillies. Bryce Harper was in that lineup, Trey Turner, pretty much all their top six were regulars. So he was getting outs, and he was looking comfortable against established stars in this league. And that can't be understated. I mean, I really think he's got that it factor about him. We still got to wait and see whether or not he can hold up over the course of a 162-game season. But there's no doubt about his stuff. I mean, we hear reporters around the team, we hear people in the organization constantly say that he has the best stuff out of any pitcher that's a Toronto Blue Jay. And that's including Kevin Gausman. That's including Jordan Romano and all those pitchers with electric stuff. So he's poised. He's poised to be a big leaguer sooner rather than later, but you want to make sure that he's ready because you don't want him to flame out early like we've seen some other times.
Yeah, he looked great. Let us know what your thoughts are, and I'm sure we'll see him again soon at some point in the spring. Now, Peter, speaking about kind of the importance of yesterday's game, I mean, we saw a lot of encouraging things. Obviously, Tiedemann's the biggest one, but George Springer has been struggling. I mean, he struggled last year as a whole. The whole season, he really struggled compared to his career averages there. And he went up yesterday. He was kind of struggling in spring as well. And I'll show you the clip here now. Hit an absolute moonshot. It was great to see him stay on the ball. I mean, it was a no-doubter. The Jays won 13-5, I believe. Yeah, 13-5. And, I mean, he looked good, and he's going to be such an integral part. You have to think about how many hitters last season kind of underperformed compared to what we suspected going into the season. Springer is right there. We speak about Vlad a lot. We speak about Dalton Varsho. Springer was right there. Obviously, he's aging, so it's a bit different, but I think he can have a big bounce back year here and start approaching maybe the 820 OPS like he used to with the Blue Jays earlier, 900.
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for him because you could tell just by watching him that his bat speed declining. It really is. And that pitch that he turned around and that he sent into the left field seats, that was an off-speed pitch. And he's struggled against fastballs. I mean, Taijuan Walker started that game yesterday. He was pumping about 88 to 90, and George Springer was late. He was swinging right through those fastballs. But this swing right here, if he can replicate that and maybe just sell out on a specific pitch and try to go for a bit more power this year, I think that's going to help the Blue Jays. I don't think he's going to get back to that 900 OPS.
Creeping out a little farther now,
of course.
5-1
He's
lead.
not the same player that he was when the Blue Jays first acquired him because he's 34 years old. And of course, naturally, things start to slow down over there. But I hope he has a bounce-back season. I think he's going to be a key part to this team this year. And he has to be because he's their leadoff hitter. He's one of their veteran leaders. And he needs to have a big bounce-back season because he was barely above average last year. And that's not the George Springer that we're accustomed to. I don't think he's going to get back to the heights that he reached in 2017 or when he first came over to the Blue Jays in 2020. But I do expect him to bounce back, and I do expect him to be a lot better than he was last year because That was just not the same George Springer that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I don't think a 900 OPS is going to happen either. But I do think maybe
Springer,
820
high
something
and
along
deep
those
to
lines.
left.
800,
And that
800,
is
even 800 would be
tough to
fine.
take that.
Yeah, exactly. Especially given his agent. I mean, he still has a couple years left on his contract, so hopefully we can see him turn the corner. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on all this. It was really good to see Ricky Tiedemann yesterday. Obviously, we're getting close to baseball. Peter, we're starting to see actual lineups be put out there. There's 2 games on the go right now as the time of recording are about to start at the same timing. It's the same team. We have Yusei Kikuchi taking the hill, so hopefully you're enjoying those, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you want to check out our video from yesterday, click on your screen now. We'll see you tomorrow.